Good morning, this is Jeff with Sewer Tech Northwest. We're at 5371 Windsor Terrace here in West Linn, located at the front right corner of the house. That says you look at the home from the street. We're going to check the overall condition, serviceability of the sanitary sewer line. We'll zero out at the base of the clean out and water is running. Alright, diving down here, most likely what we're going to see here in just a second is a transition to a different pipe material. Anytime you get a nose dive like that, it's very indicative of where a line dives down to meet up with a stub coming off the main. Yep, there it is right there. And my camera right now is upside down. We just transitioned there over to concrete pipe. We do have some standing water in the line there, which we'll take a look at on the way out when the line's fully drained. And when I got here and saw the layout of this house, I was kind of hoping the line was going to go out the back, take advantage of the slope backyard. The reason for that is the occurrence of bellies in this kind of layout where the line, especially in the crawl space and everything, sits below grade, street level. That combination of things often results in settling. For whatever reason, it does. Even if the main is extremely deep and you've got more than enough room to grade the line, for whatever reason, you often end up with a circumstance like that. So anyway, and that joint there, right as we connect onto the main, we don't get a great view of it. You've got a lot of gunk sitting there like the joint is open to the ground. The main lateral looks quite clean there. There's no real debris buildup. If there was a bunch of buildup in there, it would kind of make sense how that stuff got deposited. That joint looks like it's compromised and it's opened up to the ground there, as far as I can tell. I really couldn't explain why else you'd have that much junk built up right there in an otherwise very clean main lateral. We're going to go locate real quick here while the pipe drains off. Alright, located the camera head there. Line terminates out on Windsor Terrace. I'm not putting depths down for a reason. When I start getting to a certain depth, I want everything double checked. There are certainly stronger locators out there than the one I've got. I'm getting around 10 foot 11 inches deep here. And you'll see a green T marking out there. Again, until double checked, consider that semi-rough. I've been doing this 13 years. I've located lots of lines. It's just, those are ones I like to see double checked there. And you've got about an inch of standing water here in the line. And so when you get settling in conjunction with concrete pipe, it's a different animal than when you get settling in, let's say, plastic pipe, for instance. It's a much more flexible pipe product. You've also got a decent amount of balled up toilet paper in the line here. So to some extent, that's probably going to exaggerate some of that standing water. But what concerns me there is that joint at the end of the line looks like it's opening up. Concrete pipe can only flex so much, when it starts settling before those joints split. It's concrete already isn't terribly flexible, but what seals the joints up is generally grout, which is another type of concrete, and it doesn't take a lot of movement in concrete pipe before that compromises those joints. At the least here, what I'd recommend doing is jetting the line out. Again, you've got a lot of balled up toilet paper sitting in the line there. that was probably to some extent exaggerating the level of standing water. You've got standing water throughout a good portion of the concrete pipe there. Most of it is relatively minor. Most of it's about a 1/4 inch or so. You get upwards of an inch, maybe a little bit more than that towards the end of the line. It's the combination of that and what appears to be a compromised joint at the main that's opened up. You also have right now, again, the camera's upside down. This is actually the left side of the pipe I'm talking about. Right now it's on the right side of the screen. You can see that stain going down the sidewall. That's where you have a crack in the pipe wall there, crack or hole that's allowing groundwater to seep in. Alrighty, and I did put a mark. This locate came in a little bit clearer. I'm getting about 9 foot 2 inches deep here, and this is right at the edge of the front yard, right before the front yard hits the sidewalk. About a foot or so away from that. And so, you know, one of the things you could always start with, I don't know how recently, it looks like the main lateral out there in the street was epoxy lined. As far as I can tell, that's what it looks like. You know, sometimes you'll get leftover buildup and debris from a sewer main that used to have problems. And because, you know, it's at the top of the pipe there and pretty large diameter pipe where the water line doesn't always hit, sometimes if you've ever had a main lateral backup on the street, you can get debris deposits. You know, they update the main lateral out there so it's nice, clean, and spiffy and functions well now, but sometimes that backup debris is still remaining from a past circumstance. And because it's the top of the sewer line, it's not a spot where water easily gets to it to wash it away. So, I mean, you could always start with hydrojetting. Actually, you know what? I'm going to have to take these markings back a little bit further here. I forgot the standing water began in the ABS. Belly actually starts back here right around 22 feet. I've got to push past that turn at the base of the drop. So my markings might be off by a foot or so. All right, see in here I'm getting about 8 foot deep. So that's why I say I recommend relocating before doing any digging. The line's bellied there, so I don't really expect to see a whole lot of depth change across that area. But I was getting about a foot of depth difference, only pulling back about 4 or 5 feet. So if you do any digging, I recommend relocating. The other thing I'd look into if you're, you know, because of the settling and what potentially looks like a open joint, you've also got a crack in the pipe, letting groundwater seep in. From that standpoint, I'm recommending the concrete pipe as well as that about the first or the last 3 feet or so of the ABS there that precedes the transition be updated. At the least, what I would do is jet the line, clean it out, re-scope it. You're going to get a better view of that joint out there at the main especially to see if it's showing a whole bunch of separation. Right now, it's kind of hard to see it because of all the gunk there at the top of the pipe, but that is indicative of what it looks like when a joint is opened up to the ground. But it's also possible you could have just a whole bunch of backup debris there from a previous circumstance that no longer exists. So that will also clear out any balls of toilet paper in the flow line and give you a better realistic view of the amount of standing water. I don't think it's going to reduce the end of the line down to a 1/4 inch, but it's probably going to reduce it to some extent. You know, and if the joint out there ends up looking intact, you have a little bit different scenario going on. Something that's a little less concerning that's going to turn into a progressive scenario. But when you get a joint that's sucking a lot of dirt through it, it can lead to hydro erosion. Not only it can lead, you know, cause the road bed to settle, but it can also cause the line to settle over time too. You know, and if you end up going into the repair realm, I would look into all the options, especially trenchless or semi-trenchless, like, you know, feeding a rigid, you know, 4-inch PVC line down the middle of what looks like a 6-inch concrete line right now. As far as I can tell, it looks like 6-inch. You can do that. That may not reduce all the standing water, but what it will do is get the line sealed up. You'll have pipe that's plastic smooth, not rough concrete, in conjunction with standing water. Standing water in plastic pipe is a much less detrimental scenario than when you have that coupled with rough pipe walls like concrete does. So it reduces the likelihood of buildup significantly. I look at bellies in plastic pipe very different from concrete ones. They just react differently to debris moving through them. So if you end up doing any repairs, I recommend re-scoping afterwards to check the work. It's important to do that. Again, at the least, I would jet the line out, re-scope it, get a little nicer view of that joint there. You know, but if we're looking at that thing and it's got an inch of separation at the top of it, you know that the joint is indeed open. So, and then from that standpoint, you've got something that could progress and change with time. What you don't want to have is a, you know, offset or a partial disconnect from the main lateral, things of that nature. All the ABS plastic, for the exception of the last 3-4 feet there, has good flow and is in good condition.